we are going to be discussing the documentary Surviving Pulse. I wanted to know, Ramses has a very, as with each survivor and their own personal stories, I think Ramses also had a really unique story in the sense that he is from another country and his own country is promoting his death.
Yep.
In my country, Honduras, there is no understanding of LGBT. There is a lot of persecution for transgender. People have to hide. You cannot wear colors in there like that, like rainbow flags or something. The media from Honduras decided to like use my picture from Facebook and posted it in every single newspaper in Honduras. I received these messages of hate. Like, you should have died. You disgrace our country.
Ripped your heart out, and they just took everything on his socials, plastered it all over the newspapers, and it created this horrible situation for him where he has, social media today, they're horrific. They'll come after you and, you should just walk off a bridge, or, just come after people, horrible things. Now he can't get help to deal with what he's getting every day. But I don't want to ruin the ending. I'll stop.
No,
Ramses is all of our people that we interviewed are 100% wholesome, beautiful people who are going through hell and deserve help and need their stories told so people can understand. When they watch the news and they see something like this, everyone always goes, "Oh God, it's horrible." Yeah, it's horrible. It's horrendous. It is disgusting and it's unfathomable. But people get rocked by that and have to carry on. And that's what we need to listen to. Those are the people we need to reach out to. And that's the story we tried to tell.
There's so much that the people that weren't there to experience it for themselves don't know. And there's so much that needs to be told, just like everything we've already shared. I wanted to ask you all, Jolie, Nancy, and Miss Alexa, I know you guys keep saying, watch the film, watch the film. Were there any lasting remarks that just, from shooting the film, that just changed you as an individual and as an editor, director, and producer?
I'm so glad you asked that, because that is exactly what was going through my mind. Something that I wanted to say is that I have learned so much from this experience. And I don't know if it's, the big elephant in the room here, that we are 3 straight white women who put this film together. And as I went through listening to the interview footage, things that I never knew, I had no idea. And I guess this is just, me living in my own little bubble, that, for example, and, not everything's going to make the cut, but I learned about the fact that the LGBTQ community really struggles when let's say they're in a homeless situation. I never would have thought about that. I never would have thought it being different, or being in a foster situation, or, obviously when you're trying to get a job, we know people make judgments based on things like that, even though they're not supposed to. But it never even occurred to me. And I feel so stupid that it hadn't. But I'm so glad that I've had this experience to open my eyes and my mind to thinking more about other people and what they've gone through, what they might be going through. Things aren't always as they appear.
Right.
So thanks for asking that, because that's definitely one of my many takeaways.
And I also want to know if it affected you professionally as well. And so do you think that as an editor, you were affected too, just having to construct different interviews and different viewpoints and making it all flow cohesively?
No, I think as an editor, I think what you do is you go into work mode, because you have to be able to remove yourself from the emotion, or else you're constantly crying. And that doesn't mean I wasn't emotional. Believe me, I had to walk away a few times, take breaks, and, even give it days sometimes before I come back and work on it. So not in that sense as an editor. it was really just trying to craft the story in a way that would be engaging and keep it flowing, not repetitive, keep it fresh. And this is where the whole, three white women part comes in. What would people who are not in that demographic want to know? What would make a difference to them? What would help them realize these are human beings? So for me, that's what I tried to put on. I tried to put on, get into that headspace so that I am sharing that part of the information.
And she nailed it, the documentary, because when we did our test viewing, it resonated the beauty that Julie made out of the film. She really took our vision and just made it a masterpiece. Most of our audience was not in the LGBTQ community, and you would see their faces. And one lady said, "You humanized them," and I was like, "But they are humans, But we had touched them that in a place that I don't think that they expected to be touched, and we opened their eyes in a way that they weren't expecting us to do this. And so I think Julie nailed it with the way she put it together. And that people, it's not, yes, it's LGBT community, but we wanted to also highlight the struggles of them as being just human, just people who want to be hugged and loved and have friends and not be judged. And Julie putting it together just made it a masterpiece and just nailed it. It's beautiful.
Are there any comparisons for yourselves, Nancy and Alexa, with Julie's story and just being the way that Julie was personally affected? Could you guys also speak to that as well? How putting together this documentary personally affected your own lives and touched you?
I've always supported LGBT, African American, Hispanics. I raised my children to love everybody for who they are, no matter their creed, their sexuality. My children left the church because the youth minister wanted to damn LGBT, and my daughter refused to damn anybody. She believed in loving everybody as we raised them. Watching and doing the recordings of the film was many days of crying. I would come home and I would cry. And then I had to pull myself back together because I had to be strong for them to make sure their stories were told. I can say, as I do, I love everybody. And as recent as my youngest daughter has just come out into the LGBT community and has just announced her coming out. So, so once again, life takes us on those paths and we have to love and we have to embrace. We love and embrace. We don't have to, but we will. And so it's just wonderful to be able to raise my children that way. And then just to find out, again, that we've opened that path for her to feel comfortable, coming out and knowing that she'll always be loved no matter what. And everybody, no matter what their ethnicity or creed, as long as you respect me, I'll respect you and love you back.
Amazing. Were you also personally affected, Alexa, in any way, just greater than before?
I was coming in ready to fight the fight. I'm going to stereotype this a little bit. My mother was an antiques dealer for many, many years. So my Uncle Ran was fabulous. I had people in my life that were colorful and wonderful, and I didn't understand it when I was a little one. It just was fun, and that's who we loved. And as you get older and you're like, why do people kiss like that on TV? And mom has to explain it to me, like, someday you'll understand. We all grow into it, but I never had that bias. I really didn't. And my parents love them to death, did an awesome job of, people are people. And I've also taught I'm an 11-year-old, when you cut your finger, everybody bleeds red. So what's the problem? I've kept it that simple. There's no politics. There's no, who do you want to marry? Who do you want to hold hands? Well, who do we want to hold hands with is where I am with my daughter. But it doesn't matter. We all get to play this game. And for anyone not to, anyway, I come from a very allied background. So it's never been a problem for me. I've always been outspoken about it. so getting onto this project was really important for me to bring, now just seeing how things are collapsing. But let's give everyone a voice. Everyone deserves a voice. Everyone deserves a voice. And let's not just a voice in that matter, but in something as so specific as surviving a mass shooting. We've got to touch on this. You can't leave these people behind. You don't get them. You don't understand them. You don't hate them. Don't fight them. You don't kill. Everybody needs some help. Everybody. I could be purple with a horn. I might need some help sometime. Can I have some help? Great. We're there for you. So me coming into this, I mean, I Dukes were up a little bit, like, let's push through. And it was hard coming up with the questions for the interviews, because you want to respect this incredible, unfathomable for me, unfathomable pain and grief and PTSD and suffering. And Keon was quite open about it, as was Demetrius. They did not look forward to when we kept coming back, because we kept picking that scab. And that's really hard. And ALEESHA was our interviewer for a lot of it. Having to ask those questions really hurts, because you're looking at a human being in the face and saying, what is the absolute worst time in your life? And tell me about it. And being specific about it. That's a really hard place to go.
It is.
But but people need to hear these things. It's not all about kittens and trees. We got to talk about this stuff.
Right.
Again, I went on a tangent, honey. I'm so sorry, Gabby.
No, we didn't.
No, but actually, what you just said there, Nancy, I thought it was really important for you to tell how you actually got people to be able to share that, because that was a really big point that you made, I think.
Okay.
I agree.
In the beginning, when I agreed to do the production, I told them the one thing that I wanted them to do is not to tell their story to anybody. Because what happens is more you tell your story as a victim, the more you get immune to the emotions.
No.
And then it's just kind of on autopilot. And I wanted people to feel that raw emotion. I want people that watch this documentary for the first time to know when they tell their story, that was the very first time they told that story verbally live. And the emotion there should punch you in the guts on how these individuals feel. It was one take for them to tell their story. And I told my crew, I said, don't interrupt them. This is one take, because I'm not going to make them live through this again. And so we had to get it all right so that we could feel that emotion, because their tears were rolling. It was deep. It was intense. That was the toughest day. And the documentary was their very first interviews.
They told their complete story in that one interview, and they didn't have to come back again, or?
No, we went back to, that's why Alexis says we kept going back. The one take was telling us the details of what happened in the club to them and
when
their personal stories. We wanted that very fresh and raw, because I wanted the raw emotions. We went back at 1 year, we went back at 3 years, and we went back at 5 years. And so we revisit them each time, checking in on them, getting the little updates from them. And so that's where Alexa says we kept going and picking the scab. We kept checking in on them, and we kept bringing them back to camera. And each time they would get better, a little bit. But they show that they've grown and they're healing some. But then you see the PTSD in it.
Yes, I remember
Keon
thinking that. Yes,
Keon. 3 years later, it hit him. 3 years. Right. That's his life. It's just heartbreaking.
It takes time. And I know that was one of the questions I saw on the end of your synopsis is, does time heal? And that's a question I want to ask your opinions, your thoughts about for each of you, especially given this project where you kind of got to see for yourself, over 1 year, 3 year, 5 years, the difference in that healing, So you said yourself, it didn't hit this individual until 3 years later. So sometimes healing, it's very vertical. It's not linear. And so sometimes you're down, you're really low, but other times you're like really high and it feels good, but then something might trigger you. Like Julie, as we mentioned before, just seeing something that triggers you and you're back down to that low spot. So given interviewing these people for the past 5 years, what has, if you're able to share, what has been your observation? Like it comes in waves, it takes time, or time does seem to be a positive healing effect?
I don't think PTSD, you could put time on healing on PTSD. It's every individual. It's their personal healing, and everybody, it takes a different time. It takes different time for everybody.
Right.
You know, some people may seem that they pop back, but they're always going to have those dark closets that they fall behind when nobody's around. So you really can't say someone who's gone through a traumatic event, they're going to be living this for the rest of their lives.
Yes.
And they might seem like they're doing good, but they'll always struggle on the inside with this in one form or fashion. And that's part of that PTSD that they're all suffering from.
Well, the 5-year anniversary, especially Ramses and Demetrius had things to say about it. Like you'd think, but no. And here we are. And you hear what they have to say about it, and how the smallest everyday tasks, like being in a public area and going to a bathroom, has changed for the rest of their lives.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, close the curtains, turn off the TV, let's sleep. No, I need the TV on now, and I need this and that. And like they all these things, you can't put a timeline on. I just don't believe that. I mean, you and I, we've had a broken heart. Okay, we did not live through this. There's no, to me, it's so, the time heals a lot. I don't know if I would say heal, but in this case, maybe numbs a little bit. And depending on where people are in their headspace, can they heal? I think is a personal journey. And physically, I don't think there's any clinical way to talk about it. It's emotional. Oh, Eddie.
Yes. Man, that was really, thank you for all of that. When are we going to be able to catch this film, and where can we see it for ourselves? When and where?
Well, right now, our film is going through clearances for the news footage, the footage that you see. We're working through that, and we're in negotiations with a couple of networks at this time. And so as soon as a deal actually lands, there's conferences in our near future with these networks. As soon as a deal lands, then we'll be able to release it and tell you when they're going to air it. So, so fingers crossed. And I saw someone put out there, what can we do? Share it, share the trailer, share the Facebook page, just keep creating a buzz in your communities. And the more buzz that we get, the easier it is and the quicker we can come to a network near you. That's what we're working on. We're working hard on the back end, trying to get this, in the right hands and get it sold and get it out there for people to see.
Yeah, it's not a lack of effort on our part. Also, if you do go to the website, Julie cut together some beautiful little pieces with different people that have stuck with us over the years. You can see little clips, little tiny stories along their journey as well. And there's lots of pieces on the website. So definitely push to the website and get people talking again and realizing what's happening out there.
Yes, there is so much information on the website. People definitely go to pulsedocumentary.com to get all the info on Surviving Pulse documentary. One last question, also important, I really did want to know, how did you go about getting all of the survivors that you spoke to? I know
That would be
ALEESHA.
ALEESHA was our backhand amazing. She was the one that pulled it together, and everybody that came there stuck with us and has stuck with us for the 5 years, knowing it was a rough road for us to get their stories told, but we're pushing through, and we're not giving up until we get it out there for the world to see.
Amen.
Thank you, ALEESHA. I know you hear me.
She's in the background somewhere.
She is going, yeah. Thank you.
Thanks for having us. We appreciate you talking about our story and the documentary. Any opportunity for us to interview, to get it told, we're excited about.
Amazing.
Yeah, thanks for your time. And
Yes.
great questions too. Good
Yeah,
research.
very good.
Thank you all for your time for this project. I mean, this is 5 years in the making. It's not easy. And just these discussions alone were raising up our emotions. And I can only imagine during the process. I know you guys shared, but I just want to say thank you, because even for this interview, I learned even more, like stuff that I didn't know about. So thank you so much. Here's to the Surviving Pulse documentary and sharing the stories of the forgotten. May they live on forever. Thank you so much.
Thank you,
so much
Gabby.
for
You're
having us.
awesome.
It's been 5 years now, and there are many survivors and family members of survivors that are still struggling emotionally with medical problems, with financial issues, and there's still a struggle.
Kind of, pretty much scarred me for life. I got injuries up and down my stomach. I was shot directly in my abdomen. The shooter shot out my small intestines, my kidneys, my sacrum, split my pelvis. Being that the gun went through all day, it caused a little infection in my derriere, so it inflamed, and they had to fix that. So I was dealing with that situation, dealing with all that on top of that, as well as being on dialysis. So it's like I'm still, pretty much fighting for my life, and that was all in like a 2 months time. I'm still healing.